I fired ChatGPT, moved everything over to Claude, we would have needed 25 people on the team to be doing this. We're able to do this with a really small team. The reason we're able to turn out 20 pieces of content on a weekly basis is because we have integrated Claude very deeply and some other AI platforms into this brand. So this is saving 40 hours of work a week at a minimum, 4 to 5 hours of follow-up work per meeting. And now Claude can do it in 20 minutes, better than I ever could have. So this particular partner is on the call, doubling the list of asks. So Claude is going in, analyzing the emails, says, hey, you need to increase the pricing here by 40%. I sleep better. I'm no longer the bottleneck of every single decision. I have drafts ready and waiting to go out for me in my inbox. Claude is not smart. AI is not smart. AI is what you train it to be. It really comes down to the way that you're architecting your systems and training your Claude. You can run a version of what I'm talking about while you're listening to this episode, and it's going to make a really big difference. Welcome to Stacked, the show that helps you become your own best asset. Because in case you missed it, you're allowed to have a high vibe and a high net worth. Welcome back to Stacked, the show about becoming your own best asset. I'm your host, Emily Dempsey, and today we're doing a solo episode. This is part 2 of the episode on how I'm using AI in my business. So that episode dropped a couple of weeks ago. It was, I think, mid-April, I want to say, that we dropped that episode. And you guys, it is one of our best performing ones to date. My DMs were popping off after that episode came out. And it was really kind of just like an intro on why I fired ChatGPT, moved everything over to Claude, and kind of what I needed to do to migrate everything off ChatGPT over to Claude, and then how I've been setting up my business. And it's really been an eye-opening experience for me, and really, really important for myself and everyone on my team, from our full-time team members to contractors that we're working with, and really just everybody using Claude. So what is the stack? What does it look like? We're going to dive into it in this episode, and I'm going to give you guys some really specific examples of how we are using Claude. So as you know, as you might not know, if you're just tuning in for the first time, I had been a diehard ChatGPT girly for almost 2 years. And I used a lot of different projects in ChatGPT, organized by different parts of my business. So everything from partnerships, I had a whole partnerships folder. I had a social media folder. I had a management folder, and I had a podcast folder in there. And also in there was kind of like speaking engagements. So I'm going to kind of walk through in really specific detail in this episode different like sources of truth that we're using for Claude in the business. So the first one I want to jump into is really helpful if you're a small team or a solo operator listening to this. So you're definitely going to want to take notes, and you can run a version of what I'm talking about literally like while you're listening to this episode or immediately after, and it's going to make a really big difference. So I migrate everything off of ChatGPT over onto Claude. And some of the first things that I did when I started setting up my Claude was I activated all of the different integrations that you can connect your Claude account to. So I connected my Gmail, my Google Calendar, I connected my Canva, I connected, most importantly, my Chrome. So before you do all of this, the number one thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to download Claude and make it a desktop icon on your computer. So if you have an Apple like me, you are going to download that application, log into Claude. It's the same Claude that lives on the browser version, but it's a little bit different because it actually sits on your desktop and it can control your computer, and you can save specific files into that Claude. You can have it do a lot more things in a lot more of a powerful capacity. So you're going to want to download that Claude desktop application and then start adding in those connectors. You're also going to want to give it access to different files on your computer. So one of the things that I did was I created a folder on my desktop of a bunch of important documents that I wanted to train my Claude on. So let's use like a specific example. So for the Brickle Babes, which is the women's community that I run here in Miami, we're 70,000 women. We've hosted over 300 events in the last 4 years. We have an online community chat. We have partnerships that we run through the business. So we have a couple different pieces of information that are really important to running the business on a day-to-day basis that are they're like the handbook to running the business. So we have our media kit. We have our partnerships deck. So the partnerships deck is something that we send out to anybody looking to activate with our business. And it breaks down the different types of partnership structures that we do. And so those are two kind of like master documents. And then we also have social media, basically like SOPs, standards of practice. And that has our brand voice on it. It has our personality. How do we talk on social media? Do we use emojis? Do we not use emojis? How many hashtags? Like, what is our personality? And I think these are the most important things that you can kind of create for your business before you start really leveraging Claude and AI to automate and kind of streamline a lot of tasks for you. So the first thing I'm going to recommend that you do is, if you haven't done it already, is create a brand voice and personality document for your brand or your business. And you can actually use Claude to help you do that. So this is really setting up, this is like the feeder information that you want to give to your AI so that it can start thinking and acting like you and not have to ask the same questions over and over again, and really just be consistent on a regular basis. So that brand voice is definitely number one, most important. And then the other documents that really tell the story of our brand and our personality are that media kit and partnerships deck. So downloaded those off of out of Canva. That's where they live for us. We create them in Canva. So we download them off Canva, put them in my desktop. And then same with the brand voice document, as well as a couple of other important things. So we have like a brand kit, we have our fonts, we have our color scheme and whatnot. So I saved all of these things for the brand onto the desktop. And now this particular folder is connected to my desktop Claude, so it knows to go here and reference these different documents. We also have some templates, some email templates, some similar type social media templates. We have like a content calendar where we have different themes or formats that we're posting on a weekly or monthly basis. And so those structures are also would have been also saved down into that folder. So this is kind of creating like the skeleton and structure for everything that is going to become that single source of truth for Claude to reference on a regular basis, so that it's not hallucinating or getting a mind of its own. All right, so we have all this saved down, really great. And now we've started connecting some of those different documents. So I then move over to either Claude Cowork or Claude Code, depending on what I want to build. And this is where I'm actually creating these different types of automations. So any task that you are doing on a weekly, daily basis that you feel like a robot can do, a robot definitely can do. So one of the big time saves that I have connected with my Claude is going to be the recaps from emails and drafting of emails. So if you guys use any sort of recording AI that comes to your meetings, a note taker, I use Otter AI. So Otter AI attends all of my meetings, and I set up an automation that runs once a week or once a day, depending on what the trigger is. And it actually goes into my Otter AI account. It downloads the entire raw transcript, saves the raw transcript to my Google Drive, and then analyzes that and will create a follow-up email based on the transcript and then what Claude knows about where we are with other partnerships in the cadence, as well as our brand voice, brand guidelines, that media kit, the partnership stack, our different types of partnership structures, pricing, and all of that business. So it will also create a ranking system for us, kind of saying, oh, this is a medium, high, or low probability partnership, and help us with pricing and structuring those deals. So super cool, super exciting. So I can kind of walk you through like a real example of that. So this week we had 2 meetings with a brand that's looking to partner with us. We had that Otter AI attend the meeting. And after the meeting, my Claude automation runs. It's called Meeting Notes. That's my automation I set to run every day at 6 p.m. after the day of meetings is over. And Meeting Notes automation runs. It goes, grabs that Claude. It goes and grabs the raw transcript from Otter AI. It saves the raw transcript into a folder for that particular brand on our Google Drive. And then it creates a summary of the meeting notes and any follow-ups. It saves that as a draft email in my Gmail. Not something I want Claude to send out to anybody. I want to definitely review. I definitely want to review that before it gets sent to anybody. So it sits in my drafts. It will send me a text message. Claude will send me a text message letting me know, hey, your meeting draft recap emails are finished. They're sitting in your drafts. So I can go in there, I can read them and share with the team what's going on with these partnerships. Here's a recap email. Internal. So super exciting, really great use case. So that is really helpful for us. And then this particular case study that I'm using for you guys to kind of walk through this example. So we ended up having a follow-up meeting the same week. We were going back and forth on some deliverables and pricing. Claude Otter AI is coming to that meeting. They're recapping and they are going back and forth with us. The brand is going back and forth with us. We're negotiating on specific deliverables, pricing, and I have Claude recommending us various pushback on pricing and deliverables. So this particular partner is on the call. They ended up basically doubling the list of asks for us on this partnership. And we needed some help. How do we structure this? Does this compare to other partnerships that we've executed on in the past? How does this compare to our pricing? Is this something we can handle from a workload capacity? So Claude is going in, analyzing the emails, going back and forth, and recommending for us. It says, hey, you need to increase the pricing here by 40% based on the increase in the deliverables. And by the way, there's an error on slide 7 of your partnership's proposal that you're planning to send back. You need to fix this before you send it back. Because what we're doing is we're saving down each partnership proposal deck into our Google Drive. Every time we present, we save a version of that. And then Claude is able to actually go in and reference that deck. So it's really, really important that all of your files are super organized and made easy for an AI to find it. So definitely spent a lot of time getting all of the files organized before we really started being able to leverage Claude, which wasn't the worst thing. But end of the day, this is super helpful. So that is a use case of our partnerships, how we're using Claude in partnerships. And if we want to talk about time saved here, so time saved on these partnership automation agents and work streams that we created is probably like at least 4 to 5 hours of follow-up work per meeting. And now Claude can do it in 20 minutes, better than I ever could have. I'm not up until 11 p.m. or 1 a.m. stressed, trying to figure out what to do. The AI is really able to be a very strong strategic partner. But what I want to emphasize here is that Claude is not smart. Okay, so I think this is something that is getting really misconstrued by mainstream media right now, and that's that AI is smart and it's going to replace people. So in this example, what AI is not able to do is, number one, I do not ever want my AI sending emails on my behalf. I think it's extremely important to have human oversight, especially with communication between internal and external parties. You don't know what it's saying. Like, everything really needs to be looked over. But what AI is able to do is it's able to it's able to save you a lot of time and back and forth and really just get you to the end result. So while I might use Claude to help create the response for this particular partnership deck, the email, I'm having Claude in this instance. We got back a very, very detailed email with requests and questions about usage rights, ownership, deliverables, X, Y, and Z. And I was able to have Claude reference the exact talking points in the email against our standardized partnership agreement. So we have very standardized terms for how we partner with brands. And I was able to cross-reference this partner's questions against what do we normally do, and then create a follow-up response that was very thoughtful. And of course, yes, I double-checked everything. I changed some of the voice because while my AI knows my tone and my voice, I don't want an email to look like it's sent by AI. I want it to also be like sent by me. So this is a great segue to our next kind of use case for AI, how we're using it, and how it's really been able to save us so much time. So the second use case I wanted to talk about is content. And the example I'm going to use here is for the podcast you guys are listening to right now, Stacked. So for every podcast episode that we put out, and we put out one per week, we are really, really heavily integrated with Claude automations for this whole work stream. And the reason we're able to turn out 20 pieces of content on a weekly basis is because we have integrated Claude very deeply, and some other AI platforms that I will call out here, into this brand and our work streams. And it's been a huge time save. We would not be able to churn out this much content without AI. But at the end of the day, everything also has to get looked over by a human, and we're tweaking it. So for every single podcast episode, we get a raw transcript export. So the footage gets sent to the editor. The editor downloads a raw transcript. He saves it in the Google Drive. I have an automation set up that then goes and reads the transcript. The automation references a document we have for our brand voice, and it flags anything that maybe we don't want in the podcast. Sometimes you guys are listening to these episodes and I might get off topic with, a guest that we have, or somebody might say something that we do not want in the episode, something, controversial or just not appropriate or not on brand. So we have an automation that runs and it sends me a report and it flags anything that is, it gets a color code. So there's a red flag, a yellow flag, and a green flag. And those flags, it will flag it to me. It'll say, this is, this needs to be removed, or this section, somebody messed up. We did a reshoot in the middle, and it will provide exact timestamps of where content should be removed or edited out so that we can just immediately send this to the editor. So I will go in as soon as that is finished, check it, share it with the editor. Hey, here's some different things that need to be edited out. Or in another, an example of this would be, we had a guest about a month ago come in, and we're friends. So we just started talking for about 45 minutes before we technically started the episode. There's a lot of really good content in there that we want to keep in the episode. So now the editor can be flagged from this automation that's run. Oh, take that 45-minute conversation and actually put it in the middle or the back section of the episode. It's good content. Maybe there's 20 minutes where we don't want that content as part of the episode, so you can go ahead and edit that out. So that's a really great example of a huge time save where we don't have to listen to the whole episode. We can kind of run through the automation, flag it, and then it gets sent to the editor for processing. Another automation that we use for the podcast from a content perspective that is really interesting and cool is our copy. I call it our copy template. And we run this for each episode. So once we have that transcript saved down, we have the edited version of the transcript saved down, we run an automation that creates all of the copy for every single deliverable for that episode. So we are talking about the episode description for YouTube, the episode description for Spotify, the episode title name, the text overlay to go on the YouTube cover, the Spotify cover, which there's a lot of thought that gets put into what text goes on the cover of those different assets. Then we have about 8 to 10 pieces of static content that we're spitting out per episode. So those are carousels you guys see on our Instagram or any of our social media. We always post, the first piece of marketing material we post for an episode is guest name is stacked. And then we do a quick kind of we do a quick bio of that guest, who they are, why they're on the show, what you can learn from this episode. So that is all being extracted from the transcript. And also the guests provided biography and some internet research. And those are being put together with the exact recommendations of content that should go on those slides. Then the next thing that is spit out from that is channel-specific captions. So for our content, we are posting on my personal LinkedIn, my personal Twitter. So that has to have a different brand voice and a different persona than on the podcast channels. So we are also posting on the podcast channels for Instagram, TikTok, and a couple of other channels, YouTube, a couple of other channels are in there. So we are getting specific, optimized, also SEO optimized, also hashtag optimized caption recommendations for that first guest is stacked post. Then there's about 8 or 9 other posts per episode that we're generating, and those are our quote cards. And then those are also our educational resources based on the guest, and then some other content deliverables based on that. So this is saving the team a ton of time. We'll go through that. We will review it, sign off on it. Then it gets moved into social media. Social media begins to execute in Canva. So this is saving probably like 40 hours of work a week at a minimum, this whole content work stream that we have set up. So it's really an amazing resource that we have created. And again, you guys, I didn't mention it for this specific example, but on my desktop computer, I have saved down a stacked folder with a stacked brand voice, personality, persona for the brand on my personal channels versus the podcast channels. And that is something that the Claude will reference before it's generating that copy template. And it's really good. It gives it guidelines and rules. And because I have this saved on my desktop and I've connected this as like a source of truth or an artifact in Claude isn't having to go research through all of our history. It's not having to go back onto the Google Drive, look for these documents. It's all saved locally on my computer, which is saving it processing speed, saving it credits and downloads. And it's a really great system for helping us kind of manage the content deliverables on a weekly basis. All right, now use case number 3 that I want to walk you through is operations. So last episode on AI that I did that was a solo, we talked about how I moved everything off of Zapier automations and into N8N. So the reason for leaving Zapier and moving to N8N, which if you're not familiar with these platforms, they are automation platforms. They perform specific tasks. This is a lot of stuff that you can actually do inside of Claude, but some of it is a little bit more tricky as far as integrations. And if you don't want to do kind of like the developer level integrations through your Claude, you're still going to want to use a platform like an N8N or a Zapier. The reason we left Zapier and went to N8N is because Zapier charges you per task, which is great for them. They're making a lot of money, but it gets really expensive really fast if you have it doing a lot of automations. N8N is a flat fee monthly, and you can do unlimited automations. So we moved everything off Zapier over to N8N. So as we're managing the community, so we have 70,000 women in the Brickle Babes. It's very high touch. There's a lot of customer service. There's a lot of inquiries that we get. And apologies if you're listening to this and you're like, oh my God, Brickle Babes, you haven't replied to my DM or my email. It's because we've been working on some changes behind the scenes and really trying to get everything all buttoned up because we are growing so quickly and we get so many messages on a daily basis, whether it's DMs, emails. We get a lot of messages every day. So we have been kind of in triage mode. How do we filter and manage these and also continue to provide like a good experience for our community? So we moved those zaps off onto N8N, and now we've integrated N8N and AI and Claude into our response system. So say you send us an email, some issue came up, maybe you changed credit cards, your credit card's getting denied, you receive an email from us, hey, my credit card is getting denied, I keep getting these emails from you, what do I do to fix it? So now we have an N8N automation that sends a message to us in Slack, and Slack is showing us an example response we can send back to that customer. And the response, so you send us an email. The email goes to hello@thebricklebabes.com. N8N looks at the email. It connects to Slack. It sends us a notification. And while it's connecting into N8N, the N8N is also referencing a document we've created that is basically like our customer service Bible. And it has kind of the rules and regulations on how we respond to different things. Are we able to do this or not do that in terms of the customer service? And so that is like our Bible for that. So we have N8N referencing a Claude agent that knows our customer service rules. And then N8N sends us a message in Slack saying, hey, you got this email from a customer. Here's my suggested response. And that response is based on the rules. Do you want to respond to this? And it will save a draft in our Gmail. We can click a button in Slack. If the message is approved to go, it fires off to the customer. If we want to send a slightly different message, we can log into the email account, hello@thebricklebabes, edit the email, and send it back to the customer. But we are manually checking this every single time. So this is a great segue into the last kind of section I want to talk about here, and that is, what will I never let AI touch, ever? So number one is any external emails, so anything that goes to a partner or a member in my voice, if it's coming from me, I am reading it, I'm editing it, and signing off on it before it comes. Second thing is negotiation strategy or pricing decisions. While we might use AI as a really good starting point and a benchmark, it's a good partner in understanding what do we recommend. It's never going to be the final source of truth. So we really have to comb through all of these and make strategic decisions on our own based on our relationship with the brand, based on a lot of different things. So AI in this instance is a tool, but it is not the final. And then the last thing is anything that is related to, there's two more things. So anything that's related to an emotionally sensitive topic, whether it is somebody on the team or it is a customer service issue, a member relationship that needs care, that is always going to require a human voice on the other side of the connection. Also sales, you guys, anything like human-centric really requires a human, and that's not something we'll ever outsource to AI. And then the last thing is the brand aesthetic taste recommendations. While AI is a great tool to help us kind of get started, always going to have a human signing off on it at the end of the day. So kind of to wrap this up, like what are the unexpected wins from really integrating Claude at this level? I sleep better. I'm no longer the bottleneck of every single decision. I have drafts ready and waiting to go out for me in my inbox. I'm able to think more clearly because I have a thinking partner that pushes back, it challenges me, it makes strategic recommendations for us on the revenue side of the business. And then I have better data on businesses than I've ever had. Claude will do reports for us without me asking. A little tangent here. I know we were getting to the end of this, but I just had a fun one I have to share with you guys that I just did. So I had Claude do an audit of my personal Twitter and my personal LinkedIn, and I let it take over that Google MCP, which means Claude goes into my Google Chrome browser and logged into my LinkedIn. It analyzed all of my last posts. It analyzed all the engagement on my posts. And I had to do the same thing with my Twitter. And it went back the last 60 days doing a full audit, comparing this against the brand voice documents that we have put together for me personally, as well as Stack, the podcast, and the Brickle Babes. And it came back and it flagged for me any posts that should be taken down. It flagged for me anything that was going well, anything with high engagement, anything we should be doing more of. So super fun, super great strategic partner, especially when it comes to data, metrics, things that we used to spend a lot of time doing kind of ad hoc analysis on. AI is doing it faster and better than ever before. So where we are today with my team, we are sitting at the exact moment where to be executing the number of deliverables that we are and the work that we're doing right now, we would have needed 25 people on the team to be doing this. And we're able to do this with a really small team and a highly, highly integrated Claude system. And what's exciting and what we're in the process of doing right now is actually moving Claude off of my desktop and into the cloud and getting the team set up with Claude accounts that connect back to these Claude agents I am building, so that now the team has access to all of these agents together, which is super, super exciting. I've been dreaming about this day for a while. And then we're also adding that integration where I'll be able to talk to Claude from my phone just regularly through the app. And this is a new feature Claude rolled out in the last few weeks. It was something that was available previously through OpenClaw. And you might have heard about this, people were connecting their OpenClaw to WhatsApp, a Signal account, and just talking to OpenClaw through there. I am not a fan of OpenClaw. I think that it is a little bit more risky. It's not super safe. I like Claude more, so I waited until Claude rolled out this feature. So that is another thing we're super excited about. So I think, at the end of the day, AI is a really powerful tool to learn and figure out how to leverage in your business, but it really comes down to the way that you're architecting your systems and training your Claude. Claude is not smart. AI is not smart. AI is what you train it to be. And what's interesting, and we were talking about this on one of my live streams with Corey Clipston of Swan Bitcoin. He uses AI really heavily integrated into his business. And what we were talking about is, there was a period of time where engineering jobs just plummeted. There were no available jobs. And then it just now has completely spiked. And that role, the engineering role, is changing. It's not going away. It's less coding today and it's more architecting. How are you building your systems? How are you building something scalable and sustainable? And I'd love to get into that on a future episode. How do you get into sustainability and scalability with now your Claude and your Claude work streams? And how are you, really maximizing the amount of credits that you have from your AI platform of choice, and really being efficient with it and not creating double work or getting to the end use of your credits. So we will definitely do a follow-up episode talking about how we've now integrated more into Claude. I'll be super excited to share with you guys once we do migrate all of our agents into the cloud and the whole team is able to access them. It'll be super, super exciting. But in the meantime, if you have any questions or you want to chat about AI, I am the biggest fan of it. I'm obsessed and I'm happy to chat. So DM me, email me, and it will be great. So we will see you next week on the show. If you are not following us already, please make sure to follow us. We are Stacked Assets on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, TikTok, all of the platforms. And then my personal handle is Emily Dempsey. And we will see you next week. That's a wrap on this episode of Stacked. If this one added value, share it with someone who's ready to level up their financial life. Subscribe so you never miss an episode. And if you're feeling generous, leave a rating and review. It helps us keep the show going and reach more people who are serious about becoming their own best asset. You can subscribe to our newsletter at www.stackedassets.co for weekly intel on Bitcoin markets, business, and living well. Follow along on socials at Stacked Assets or my personal at Emily Dempsey for more on Bitcoin business and building the life you actually want. I'll see you next week. Stay stacked.